Hello, my name is Luke.
And my name is Piers.
And welcome to On the Gallery Floor, a new contemporary art podcast where artists and audiences get to interview each other.
Yes, artists answer your questions while getting to ask some of their own too.
By bringing you closer to the artist and the artist closer to you, we hope to transform contemporary art's reputation from an inaccessible conundrum into an ordinarily relatable experience for all.
So, get your questions ready and meet us on the gallery floor. In this episode, we're talking to the Malawian South African artist Billie Zangewa, whose exhibition, A Quiet Fire, is currently on show here at the John Hansard Gallery in Southampton. Billie's exhibition of silk collages presents black women in new and unconventional ways. Defiant, tender, humorous and intimate images make up her exhibition, along with a reading table containing a selection of related books. While exploring Billie's exhibition, you'll gain a new appreciation for needlework, textiles, and Billie's philosophy. Every stitch Billie sews is sublime. Every figure, object, and landscape is depicted with uncompromising sensitivity and extraordinary humanity. Her artworks also rip and tear, just as our bodies scratch and scar, telling tales of personal histories both joyful and traumatic. One work that tells a story of yearning is a stunning self-portrait that stares directly at you. "Here I am," it says, "and what have you got to say to me?" it asks. Other works, like her sleeping toddler in a dinner scene, challenge gender stereotypes and racial prejudice through what Billie calls her acts of daily feminism. Here, you're invited into domestic and familial settings wherein black women feature front and centre. What has been overlooked, ignored, and undervalued is now made strikingly visible. Billie elevates her subject as adeptly as she wields a needle. A Quiet Fire is showing until the 9th of September, 2023. Well, hello, Billie Zangewa. Thank you very much for joining us today on the gallery floor. Luke and I are both in England, in John Hansard Gallery, and we're calling Billie all the way across the sea. Billie, you're in Johannesburg, South Africa. This is the first time we've ever done something overseas. It's a bit mad.
Yeah, we're online. We're on the gallery floor online.
So thank you for coming, Billie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. And I'm very, very excited. I'm excited to have my show with you, and I'm excited to be here with the two of you today as well.
Thank you. So we've got some questions for you, Billie, and you've got some questions for us, and our audience has some questions too. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Lovely. Let's get into it.
Okay, so Billie, our first question is, when does something, an idea, an image, an experience, become a silk collage for you?
I think that an experience, whether it be emotional, physical, or, mental, comes into being when it does not let me sleep. So basically, when I'm obsessed with it and it keeps coming up, then I'm like, obviously, this is something that I need to communicate so that we can initiate some kind of dialogue around this. Because obviously, for me, most of the time, it's usually a universal experience that I'm grappling with. And then sometimes it's actually got a lot to do with what's happening in my environment. So, like, for instance, when COVID happened and then people were losing people and then we were teaching our children at home, there were a few things that I needed to communicate to create solidarity and to also reach out to other people, even though we were in isolation. So it really depends on the circumstances.
So when you have those experiences and it keeps you up at night, is there anything on sort of like the origin of that moment? Do you know that it's going to happen like as you're experiencing it? Do you sort of, I'm getting a feeling this is going to keep me up?
No, it's not necessarily that I know it in the moment. It's just like sometimes it just keeps coming back to me and I keep thinking about it. And then I start thinking, well, maybe this is something for me to explore. Sometimes it hasn't even happened, and I'm like, I have to make this thing happen. So for me, the creative process is not linear. It's not the same. Ideas don't come to me in the same way. The inspiration is different every time. Really. Yeah.
Billie, you were saying about being kept up at night. Do dreams ever influence your work at all?
Oh, I am such a dreamer. My dreams are my ancestors coming to communicate powerful things to me. So just to put it out there, I was just saying to the two of you earlier that I'm trying to sell my house because I bought another house, which I'm working on. And it's just been like, I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's like, am I not giving the right energy to sell the house? Is my son holding on to the house? It feels kind of like there's some energetic block. But last night I had the most incredible dream that somebody was interested in my house.
Ooh.
So now I see things very, very differently. So dreams, definitely, I listen to my dreams, and I have very vivid dreams, and I remember them, and I've been guided through them. I don't know if everyone that's listening is spiritual, but I'm a spiritual person, and my dreams are very important messages for me to listen to and pay attention to.
Wow, you're a dream weaver with your textiles.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But I do that when I'm awake, though.
So, what is your experience of being a Malawian South African artist working in Johannesburg with exhibits around the world? I mean, for example, A Quiet Fire is your first UK major exhibition. So
I think for me, the first thing is that being able to exhibit around the world and, having people interested in what I have to say and the images that I produce is very humbling, and I have deep appreciation for that possibility. Johannesburg is a crazy place, but it is my source. Like, this is where my big ideas were created. So even though we're going through a lot, and it seems like every week we have something, it was like the one week we had an earthquake in the middle of the night, and then the next week had snow. And then just a few days ago, we had an explosion in the center of town, and there was a street that was like, I don't know if you guys heard about that.
No, not at all.
So there was a gas explosion underground, and basically the street, Bree Street downtown, an iconic street, just kind of collapsed. It looked like a proper earthquake. So I live in one of the most insane places in the world, but it's authentic, it's real, and it's inspiring. So that part obviously means I have to be a very resilient, strong person mentally, because nothing is making it easy for me. As for being half Malawian, half South African, that's always complicated for me, because people always want to put me in a box. They always want to say I'm South African or I'm Malawian to suit their agenda. But for me, I'm half, because that is my origin. Those are my genetic roots, cultural roots, etc. And I don't like the idea of denying 50% of myself. So it's very important for me for everyone to be clear of the fact that I identify as 50% and 50%.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever felt that has presented any challenges to you as an artist in your career?
Well, as an artist, not so much, but I think just as a person in general, because, I always say to people, it's really funny because when I'm in South Africa, I don't look South African. They go, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm actually half South African. And then when I go to Malawi, I'm a lot taller than the men, and they go, where are you from? And I go, I'm actually half Malawian. So I think in terms of my two cultures, I'm definitely like, I'm not, people don't see me as being either or. And I guess, I don't really fit in, but it's okay, because I think when you're an artist, fitting in is not really your primary concern, because an artist is an outlier. We do things against convention of society. So having people not accepting me because I don't look like them or I don't speak like them or whatever, it's okay with me. I'm okay with it.
You're certainly taking it in your stride. I mean, you've brought your heritage and your life to the UK here in the gallery across many thousands of miles, and it's an incredible sight to see, especially for Southampton. I mean, we don't. And obviously I was also colonized by the British. Just putting it out there. That's why my images are so relatable in terms of visual language, because my visual language is not a village.
in Malawi with like carrying clay pots with water and stuff like that. It's an urban life, and I speak English, and so I think that's another thing I'm communicating. That's another layer in my exploration of identity is I was colonized and I've assimilated that, and it's a part of my identity.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to be like, I'm going to remove all colonization in my identity and revert back to what African life might have been like before colonization. I accept everything as is, and I communicate that.
So that's it's the 50-50 thing again. If something's there, it's going to be there. It's not going to be ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it my turn?
No, well, we're just going to...
we're nearly there.
Yeah, we see you itchy, Billy. We've got one last question for you, and it comes in sort of two parts. So, Luke, would you like to ask the first part, and I'll ask the second?
Okay, part number 1. How does being a mother influence your work?
And part number 2 would be, and has your mother influenced your work too?
So everything really started with my mother. Of course, at the time, I never knew it because I was a young child. But she used to have a sewing group at home, and I was fascinated by the whole thing. I was really quite taken with it. But I mean, like at the time, I didn't realize how important it was going to be in terms of expressing myself and my identity. But it's definitely one of the earliest things that just triggered some kind of path for me. Having my son was amazing. I mean, first of all, I feel that my ego was a bit reduced, because now when you go from just thinking about yourself, and then you have somebody who depends on you, a baby that's helpless, they can't do anything themselves, they can't walk, they can't feed themselves, they can't communicate their emotions. Suddenly you're focused on this other person, and then your ego starts to dissolve. And I think this is a beautiful thing for creativity, actually, is if you can limit the ego, then what you create is much more authentic. So I think for me, that's the thing my son gave me, was I didn't care anymore about accolades. I wasn't thinking I really want to be collected by this museum. I want to have this solo show. I want to do all these things. I was just like, my primary concern is looking after my son. I've got 2 hours to work. What can I do in 2 hours? So that for me was where my creative juices really started coming in. But also I think another layer for me with having my son was I could explore the feminine further, because I could say, now I'm a mother, I've given birth, and I'm a nurturer. And I want to share all the experiences I have as a mother. The joy of just looking at your baby and saying, oh my God, you're the most beautiful person I've ever met in my entire life. And then the struggles as well, where you're just like, I'm so exhausted, but I have to find a way to make it through. Because my child won't accept, I'm exhausted, I can't take care of you right now.
Yeah.
So it really does teach you resilience and fortitude, I think. But also the love is the most beautiful love, because it's purely unconditional. I think the only unconditional love that exists in humanity is between a parent and their child. Because when you're in a romantic relationship, it's not unconditional. It's always conditional in some way.
Mm-hmm. And is that sort of, it almost sounded quite primal the way you were describing being a mother.
I'm very primal when it comes to my baby. And it's true, you do tap into your primal power. But, I think for me, what's really interesting is, you get the degree, you read a lot of sophisticated books, and you can have intellectual conversations. But when you have a child, your animal side comes out. And then you're like, wow, I am a beast. And I'm a strong, powerful, intuitive beast, as well as somebody who can have a conversation about a really cool book.
I'm now imagining a beast reading a book.
But there's a lot of fearlessness as well, and I think that's really reflected in the work around us. I think to be, but then I guess to be scared and to be fearless too. If we're going to bring it back to the 50-50, it's like it's all there.
Yeah, so I think you expressed it in a way that I wouldn't have been able to, although that's exactly what's in my mind, is that you can be so afraid, but you can be so courageous at the same time. That you can just tap into something that you never knew you had, like a power, like this mystical power that you never even knew was possible.
Mm.
And you only find out when you have somebody who needs you. And then suddenly you're like, wow, I'm capable of all of this.
Do you know, another thing to add to that, talk about like people needing people. I think art in general, and of course with your work, people will come into the exhibition and they will need this work. This will do something for them as well. And people find, I mean, I certainly have found it, you find certain things within the work, and that's what you need that day. You need somebody on a sun lounger, or you need the rips in the work. You need people delicately placing needles somewhere. There aren't words for it, except, Billie, you said magic, and I think that's when all things disappear. It's like, oh no, there is a real sort of magic to this way of working and making.
Yeah, and also I just want to make people like happy. Like I want their eyes to look at something and then they can forget their sorrows. So my work is socio-political, but at the same time, I want it to be aesthetically pleasing as well. Because for me, the balance of the two is very important. Like I could never make something ugly because, I mean, what's the value in it? So you can communicate something complicated, something important socially, but you can also just give somebody a reprieve. They can just be like, I had a really hard day today, but then I arrived here and I saw this image of this woman and her child. And, you know, when I speak to the work behind their Paradise Revisited, like we all look so relaxed and everything, but they know people around us. So it is slightly uncomfortable. There's something a little bit uncomfortable about that piece. And that's the communication I'm making. But when you look at the overall image, it just says, oh, this is so lovely. And it's so like seductive. And it makes me forget all my issues and just focus on the intensity of the kind of luminosity of it visually. But when you look deeper, you can see there's something else being communicated.
This is a little bit random. While we're talking about Paradise, you say there's no one else in the image. We potentially have found a small person on the left.
Did you find the lady behind the tree?
This was mentioned to me by my housemate who also works at the gallery, and they were like, "Have you seen the person in the background?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? I thought there was no one there." I don't want to.
So cool. They found it.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But if you do come into the gallery and you want to see the large piece in Gallery 1 on the wall called Paradise Revisited,
yeah.
It's got a hidden figure, and it really elevated the work for me. I don't know why, because it's not a sinister thing by the looks of things. It's just a hidden person. But
it's just to say that, you know, in a way we were so lucky, because when you go to the south of France at that time, usually it's like you can't even swim in the pool because there's a million people. So the fact that this person could have their privacy, but knowing they were not alone, and us as well, having our own little private intimacy without too much intrusion, but knowing there's somebody else there, that was actually quite a treat, I think. We were very lucky.
It's like going to galleries. It's a sort of similar experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get to sit with the work.
Yeah.
All on our own now. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to bring back part 2 of the question, if that's okay, Billie. Has your mother influenced your work as well, beyond the sewing group that you mentioned at the beginning of?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that female identity in general has influenced my work. And I think my mother in particular, because she was a housewife, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my mom is a very intelligent human being. She was born in South African apartheid. She struggled. She came from a small town in the Eastern Cape where she was poor, like dirt poor, but super intelligent. No chance of having an education. She ended up being a housewife, and she had to ask my father, like they had to discuss finances the whole time. And I was like, this is not going to be me. I know it sounds really strange to say that, but I don't want to ask anybody for money. I don't want to discuss budgets with anyone. If I want to buy something, I will pay for it myself with my own money. Mm-hmm. And I will make those decisions myself. And I know it's a generational thing, because like my mother's generation, that was how marriage worked. Was you looked after the kids, the husband went to work, and then you asked him for money, and you had to justify why you were spending that money. So in a way, that was one of the other lessons. But I think the biggest lesson for me was really just understanding that there's power in the feminine, which is something that I saw when I saw her and her friends having their sewing groups, where they would get together and they would discuss their challenges in the beginning. Like it would be quite like agitated. But then after everyone had had a cup of tea and a scone, because I was colonized by the British, and then and then they would start sewing, it would get silent.
Mm-hmm.
So that for me was what was the thing that I observed. How can this sewing thing like move a person from being emotional, agitated, feeling powerless, victimhood, to suddenly being in their center and just being in total control? So, I mean, apart from saying I don't want to get married and ask my husband for money, I think the biggest thing for me was to see that there is power in the feminine, that women don't have to go and wear power suits and go and become heads of corporations and do men things in order to be powerful, that you can actually find your power in something that's intrinsically feminine.
Mm. And that sort of feeling of the zen of the sewing, and they make that transition from the emotional conversation at the beginning, and then they're going into their sort of like flow state, if you like. Is that seeing that in person from a young age? Is that what triggered your pathway into using textile collages? Do you feel like you get that same sense of zen that you saw those other women?
I manifest through sewing. So I have an assistant who's brilliant, and she can sew a huge piece in like 3 hours. I don't know how she does it. I can't do it. But I always sew because if I have a certain desired outcome, I know it's not going to happen unless I sew. Mm-hmm. So I will actually tell her some days, no, don't come in. And then I will sit there and I will do it. And while I'm doing it, I know I'm projecting my desires into the future. And when you are in that state of mind, I know people have named it things like alpha or beta or whatever, where they say that when you're in that state of mind, you can manifest anything. I can truly say that it's real because I have experienced it, because I have manifested and I've projected into the future being in that state of mind, which I think that's what the sewing does for me. And that's what the sewing was doing for my mom and her friends. It was putting them into that state of mind that allows you to create into the future.
Wow.
God, powerful
so we're
stuff.
all going to sew now.
Yeah, we will definitely be sewing after this.
I've had a brief stint with knitting in the past, and you definitely...
I think you can achieve it in different ways. Some people do it through exercise. Some people do it through cooking. Some people do it through singing. I think like you can do it. Like I think every human being is capable of achieving that state of mind that helps you to manifest. It's just that they don't teach it at school. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Or at least if they do, they don't necessarily tell you that that's what it is. They're just like, oh, this is your hobby. And then you've got to, all right.
Yeah,
okay.
But they're not telling you that you can achieve power not just through studying and working hard and showing up at school every day, but you can also achieve something through getting into that state of mind. Yeah. Because you can be the poorest person in a village somewhere, but if you can get into that state of mind, you can achieve anything you want. That's, I guess it's me going back to spirituality again. But I feel that we exist on a multi-layered kind of plane. We don't just exist in the physical, rational. We exist on other planes as well, where we can do magical things.
Okay, Billie, you were waiting earlier. Now is your time.
Alrighty then. So my first question is, how do you experience my work in the show? Which work stands out the most for you and why?
Okay,
Who's
Piers.
going to start?
I'm happy for Piers to take the ball first.
Okay. Contrary to what was said earlier about Paradise Revisited, I find, Billie, in your work, I feel like I'm being watched a lot. And at first, it was a really like wonderful experience because I found I was meeting the eyes, the many people's eyes in your work. So in your self-portrait and in the Inquisition, and so there's a lot of like me looking at people that I know are looking back at me. But then there's this, as I sort of looked deeper into and it was the landscapes that really did it for me. There's something about the landscapes, like the really rich, deep greens that honestly anybody who's not seen the show should come and see it, because it's difficult to describe, but these greens should be seen. But there's something about these greens and these trees and the depth of colour that makes me think of, it's fairy tales. It's the forest beyond, and that's the point in the image that I feel looked at. It's the eyes that you can't see. And yeah, Paradise Revisited, there's no one there. Well, there's this other person there, but I'm sort of thinking, what else is there? What else is looking at me, at the characters? And I find it, I don't think it's a pleasant watch. I feel like there's this third presence, and maybe it's because I don't know that they're or where they are, that it sort of makes me uncomfortable. But yeah, for me, it's very much being watched.
Sure. Interesting.
Is Paradise?
Well, you
your
do know
favorite?
that trees are beings, right?
Well, that's the other thing. Trees.
So trees are probably watching you, and
Yeah.
that's what you feel. Like, you're so sensitive. You might be a very sensitive person. So you're feeling that watchful eye of the trees.
Very much so. Very
Remember
much
that
so.
you go into the park, Piers.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's difficult to walk into forests and not feel that. Absolutely.
Yes, the forests are hectic. We used to play in forests with my brothers when we were kids in Malawi, and it was intense. I still remember that I felt watched.
Yeah.
I felt like they were just like eyes on me, but we loved it. It was an adventure. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like something intense, because it's unfamiliar, I can feel uncomfortable. But in fact, trees are not harmful. They're
No, I'm
actually
getting
very
you.
loving.
Well, as anyone that knows me, I'm a big fan of trees. But you mentioned there playing in the trees and them watching you. Is that what placed you in the collage of you in the tree, where you're looking out to the audience? Are you sort of assimilating that feel?
Yeah, so for me, that piece, sorry to because I'm so excited, your question's great. So sorry, I cut you off there. But for me, it's really tapping into the power of nature. Because you can feel that tree has a presence. You can feel that me sitting in the tree has given me a certain energy as well. So I've been transported to a spiritual world. That's what I would say. I would say it's more like trees are spiritual. They're spirits.
Definitely.
So I think that's why, and also it's not comfortable, right? You're like, what's going on in this piece? It's also not comfortable, like you said. But it is for me, because it's for me that work is a lot about how, when I was a young child living in Malawi, I was so in touch with nature. Nature was my whole experience. You know, living in Blantyre, we would go and play and climb guava trees and do walk through fields of corn or sugar cane or stuff like that, and experience animals and insects, and then we would go to my grandmother's village, and then you would just feel that silence. And then everything is lit by the moon, so it's like natural light. So this is me being nostalgic about a much simpler, more innocent past where nature was my best friend. Because then obviously I moved into the urban world where it's about, have you got the best car? Do you live in the nice house? Do you have nice clothes? So in a way, I felt detached from my origins. So that's what that piece is about a lot.
Yeah.
And I also think that's the reason why we go back to nature whenever we feel lost.
Oh, definitely. And I like going into nature to get lost. My favorite thing is walking on the path. I'll look over.
You need to get found.
Yeah, exactly. I'll look into the bushes and I think, okay, that's my direction for the day. And then it's just me wading through with a tripod and a camera. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But to come back to your question to us, how do I experience the work in the show, and which work stands out the most for me and why? I find the room incredibly peaceful, and I think there's a degree of influence from being in the gallery and spending so much time here, and being here when the previous exhibition was on, because as much as the work is in the space is still its own sort of entity, if you like, within the gallery, without sounding too silly about it. But the fact that it's all fabric and it's light, it's thin, they are photographs in their own right, I think, because they are recreations of a moment in time, whether that's a memory or a picture or a drawing that you've made, they are almost, I don't know if ethereal is the word. It's the way that they float when people walk past them. I find that it adds to the relaxation of the space. Not to say that necessarily all of the themes and things in play are relaxing, because they definitely are.
Not all of it.
But that's the feeling I get. And in terms of my favorite piece, I think it's probably Temporary Reprieve. Only because, and I think it's added now that you've mentioned the primal and the beast within you, because it's the one piece in the work, in the body of work, that has the most taken away from the image, and it almost looks like it's been torn and ripped out, like someone was grabbing hold of it and it was being pulled almost, in a way. At least that's the way that I see the work. And because it is an image of your son, you want to protect, and you would do anything to make sure that you retained that image and that picture. So I think that's why it's my favorite. And I think you've added to it by talking to us. So thank you. So yeah,
I love that work too. I really do. I love the fact that like his dummy fell out his mouth, but he's still sucking on the dummy. It's so cute. Like, have you ever seen a baby when they do that? The dummies come out, but they're asleep and they're going. They're like,
Billie,
and the innocence. Yeah.
Billie, we had a visitor last week, and we were looking at Temporary Reprieve, and we had said, oh, it's the piece that seems to have the most sort of removed from it. It's sort of ripped, and I wonder if you'd like this, but the lady said, oh, but of course it's like that, because how could you make an image of a child that's so active? And I was like, oh, right, okay. So whether that was involved at all, I'm not sure, but.
There's a lot of spontaneity that happens with the fabric choices that I make. But for me, first of all, he's very peaceful, and the best time to look at your child is when they're asleep. Like even now, he's 10 years old, going on 11. When he's asleep, he's beautiful. So when you're a parent and you look at your sleeping child, that sense of peace and safety that they just exude is really, really powerful. But, for me as well, the thing with the rough edges is that that's basically life in a nutshell for me. Because no matter how well adjusted your parents are, your whole family, eventually something is going to happen to you. Trauma will happen to you. So I'm just really speaking to that as well, but then I'm assimilating the two, because I feel like in society, up until this point, where now people are talking about things, they're saying, I'm in therapy, I'm working on myself, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Up until recently, we didn't talk about that. Mental health was something that you had to keep secret. Like, oh, something happened to me when I was a child, and so I'm challenged in this way. Nobody would communicate that. They would just present as being strong, perfect, and beautiful or whatever. So in a way, I'm kind of saying, embrace yourself, all aspects of yourself. And you know what? Talk about it. If you're in therapy, say I'm in therapy. If you had something bad that happened to you as a child or last year, say it. Say, I'm struggling with this because this happened to me. And I just feel that we can have a lot more empathy, and we can also be more human, because we're not trying to be superhuman.
Yes.
But that whole thing of like the superhuman who has no issues, it didn't serve anyone, in my opinion.
Well, there'd be no
But of course,
art
at the
without
same time, everybody talking about their vulnerability is also like, it's almost like the trends, the trends that are coming in. If I talk about my vulnerability, everyone will find me interesting, and then I'll get more followers. Yeah. So unfortunately, being honest does still attract a certain type of vulture, if I can put this that way. But I love vultures. I'm just saying the actual animal is quite wonderful, but it does kind of attract people who want to exploit people's weaknesses.
For sure.
But that's not a reason for us to not be honest about our challenges.
Sadly, even challenges end up being marketable and able to be consumed. But totally, like it's a language people find, and I mean, who knows if this is true, but art is a very old language that people have used forever. Writing, painting, textile work.
Yes.
That's people say stuff there.
Exactly. Singing is so powerful. that person is expressing some emotions. They're telling you their story. You just have to be in tune and you have to listen.
Oh yeah, for me, singing is probably the most. How to say it? The idea of singing publicly for me is the most cringeworthy and horrible experience I can imagine, and that is purely because it's the most. I see it as one of the most expressive forms of yourself because you are. I don't know. You have to tap into something. I think to sing.
It's pretty exposing.
It's incredibly exposing. So yeah, I know. I totally appreciate what you're saying there, Billie. Thank you. Would you like to move on to your second question?
Yes.
Okay, so if you were to create your own work based on the domestic scene, daily life theme, what would it look like?
Okay, so Piers and I had a little discussion on this. And I hope this doesn't sound too boring. Mine would probably revolve around the fridge in the kitchen at home. I don't know if it's... The fridge has an allure to it, sort of similar to the TARDIS in the police box. You kind of want to open and go in. The fridge has the same thing. What's inside? What snacks wait for me today? Nothing, but I'll be back in about 2 hours and there'll be the same stuff, but I'm going to look anyway.
Right.
And I remember in university there was an image that someone showed us of a fridge. The door was opening towards the camera, so you can't actually see in there, but the sort of glow coming out.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's got the allure is increased at night because it has the light inside. And you're like, okay, here we go. Opening the door. Oh, what's in there for me today? Yeah. So
we just got a new fridge, and my son said to me, "Mom, when the fridge is closed, is the light still on?"
That's the thing. It's like Schrodinger's cat, but
totally.
With the light. Is it on? Is it not? Who knows? I've never seen the light turn on.
It's like if I just like it today.
So yeah, I think my domestic scene or daily life would be revolving around the fridge and the sort of the complications of wanting to eat. I'm just bored, so I'm looking anyway. It's kind of like a habit as well.
But there's a hope, isn't there? Something will appear.
Yeah, maybe something I forgot is at the back. Yeah, good point. Good point. So yeah, that as boring as it sounds, that's my answer to that question.
No, it's actually not boring. It's completely relatable. Completely.
Cool. Well, maybe we'll see that in your future work, Billie.
Loads of fridges.
I've inspired you.
I've actually thought about it, and I've taken pictures of my son at the fridge. Because for him, it's like when he opens the fridge and the light comes on, everything in there looks amazing.
Oh, nice.
So what is he going to have? So, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying.
We'll be looking out for that work.
Yeah, we'll see that in Gallery 3 next time.
Oh, okay. So I get so sentimental when it comes to stuff like this. When it's sort of like about home, I actually thought about what we bring into houses. And recently, I was near where I live. I guess it's sort of like a shingle beach, and I was thinking about the stuff we bring back home, such as like seashells. And I was thinking, where do we put these things? We put things, or I certainly do. I put them on the shelf. And I would probably, if I was to make a work around that, it would be bringing items back home and putting them around our houses. So it would be like, I don't know. A shell next.
So you'd basically be admiring your bounty. So you'd be like in your kitchen on the kitchen shelf, like.
Oh, he definitely would be.
I mean, if we had to visualize it.
Absolutely, but also I think it's the things you take from outside and then how that mixes with, let's say, tomato sauce left on a plate that you've still got to clean up. Yeah. I think it's very much, the stuff you find, and then also the stuff you find in the house that you might have, that you might have lost, like a sock that never got washed. It'd be those extremes, both inside and outside, but all happening within this little domesticated sort of setting.
Do they all share the same, like when you see something from outside that you want to take inside, what is it about it that makes you want to take it from one place to another?
That's a good question. I think it's something to do with, it's like magic again. Will this be like a magic item? Will this hold
magic?
Yeah.
And also you're bringing life back.
Yep.
Because a shell is life, a stone is life, a feather is life. And I just want to put it out there and say, I collect feathers, shells, stones. My friends laugh at me because when we go to the bush, I like pick up all the different pieces of quartz, because quartz just seems to just like it's there. It's just there in the bush. And to them, it's just stones. And I'm like, oh my God, look at this one. And I'm like, but look at this one. And look at this one. And then look at this one. And I have so many gray feathers. And everyone is like, these gray feathers look so nasty. And I'm like, no, but look in the light. You can see it's not the same gray. So I think it is the magic. I think it is tapping into the child inside of yourself who finds everything magical.
Yeah. I can say now, if we all went on a walk together, I'm not sure we'd all return, because I think we'd be endlessly, Billy, Piers, Luke, you're all gone. Where have they all gone?
Billy's trying to grab birds out of the sky. They're my feathers.
True confession, they'll never let me back to Zanzibar again, but I did collect some of the coral. And when I got to the airport and they were scanning it, I was like, oh my God, I'm about to get arrested in Zanzibar, because I couldn't resist just picking up like a piece of coral. You're not allowed to.
Oh, well.
I was like, but can't everybody just take one?
Have you still got it?
Oh, yeah. And
Very
they're
nice.
still so beautiful.
Yeah.
Coral is stunning. Yeah.
Okay, Billy. So for our final section, we have our questions from the audience. Okay, if you choose a number between 1 and 8 for me.
5.
5. Okay. What advice would you give to young creatives looking to get into the industry? And that is from Arts at University of Southampton.
Well, I would say, first of all, be sure that this is actually what you really want. And then give it your all, like tunnel vision. Get that tunnel vision, focus on it, work on it. Do that whole alpha beta state of mind thing I was just talking about right now, whatever that is for you. Visualize and just believe in yourself and have faith. I mean, I honestly think that's the only way to do it, to do anything.
To the point, I love it. Okay. Another number between 1 and 8.
8.
This could be a hard one, but how long, roughly, does it take for your work to be finished? And that is from Jan.
So, Jan, all I can say is this. When I'm running out of time, I can do it in 3 days. But then I have to go to bed for 2 weeks because I get very sick. Because basically I'm working for 3 days nonstop. But if I can take my time, I've taken 3 months to make work. I think generally if I'm like managing my time properly, it's between 2 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. And it's the up to 3 months, is that an indication of the scale of the work? Because there are certainly some works here that have more smaller pieces of fabric as part of the collage, whereas some of the larger pieces might have less. Does that play a role?
No, for me, it's really about whether I have a deadline or not. And actually, I think I have like a dance routine that I do whenever I have to work for a show. The first work is a torture because it's not done until it's done. So that's usually the work that takes me about 3 months. And then everyone is like, oh, we need images for the press. And I'm like, no, I'm still figuring things out. And then what happens after that is that suddenly the work flows. But I basically have to persevere through that work where I'm trying to figure out where I'm going.
Yeah.
And that's usually what happens with the work that takes 2 to 3 months, is that I think creatively I'm trying to figure something out.
That's what's keeping you up at night.
Yeah. And everyone's like, when is the piece going to be finished? The collector's waiting. And I'm like, leave me alone.
You'll get it when it's finished.
I have no control over the process myself. I am as much at the mercy of the work as you are.
Okay. Another question between 1 and 8, please.
Let's go for 1.
Okay. What do we have? I notice the world almost always have sections cut out or torn, sometimes large, other times just a corner. I wondered about the reason for this and what meaning it has. And that's from Andy.
So Andy, I don't know if you were listening earlier, but it's because I want to communicate the perfect in the imperfect. So the idea that we have wounds and traumas and stuff like that, that we can show publicly as well as our positive aspects. So I guess in a way for me, it's embracing your totality as a person, including your negatives. So that's why it's really important for me. And I don't always do it. There's some works I've made that were perfect, but that's because it was perfection. And so I can't make it imperfect just to suit my narrative or my visual language. So I kind of have to be very, very honest about it. But it really, really is about, you can call it entropy, the fact that like when something is made and it's new and it's perfect, and as it gets older, things, it starts to tear or things start to break down, it gets dense, or like as humans, we get wrinkles and, we might get a bit of a chubby cheek. But that's life. So I guess my message is really, I'm embracing life. I'm embracing the beauty of it. And I'm also seeing the beauty and the aspects of it that other people don't think are beautiful, because I think life is beautiful in totality.
Beautiful, beautiful message. Thank you. Would you like to do 2 more?
Sure. So shall we try, what numbers have I said? I've said 1, 5, and 8, right?
Yeah.
Should we try an even number, like 4?
Oh, okay, good. How do you sew your pieces, hand or machine? They look very intricate and particular in relation to the threading.
Hand.
That's from
God
Emmanuel.
gave me gifts and I use them. So that's really also one of my messages is you never have to feel disempowered, because you have something in your body that can empower you. So you have your hands, you have your ears, you have your mouth, you can sing, you can write books, you literally don't even need to go to university. You don't need somebody to give you money. If you understand the power of your own body and all the different parts of it, you can be an athlete. I mean, think about it. A ballet dancer. So these lovely 10 fingers do all the magic.
I'm having a career change.
Yeah. I'm getting rid of the camera.
So what are you going to do now?
I'm doing it all by hand.
Will you become a ballerina? Will you become a model? A nude model?
I'm thinking ballerina, and then nude model on the side for some extra cash.
You're inspiring us all today, Billie. Thank you. Okay.
Cool.
Final question, please. Choose a number.
Let's try 6. We'll try another even number.
Okay, so the final question is, how do you select your fabrics? And that is from Verity.
I just go with the flow. Like sometimes I'm obsessed with like gray. Sometimes I'm obsessed with pink. Sometimes I'm obsessed with green. Sometimes I'm obsessed with blue. So when I go and source my fabric, it's not for a specific work ever. Mm-hmm. It's really just to bump up my supply. And then what happens after that happens. So I like things to be organic, because I was told by my higher self, the creative part of me, that I need to listen to my intuition. And creativity is not logical. It's illogical. So I need to let go of everything, because I am a very pragmatic, earthly person. I'm a Capricorn. So, the brain is a big part of who I am, thinking and like working things out. But when it comes to my work, I really have learned, and it took me a long, long time to do it, that it has to be intuitive. So, I can go somewhere and bump into a fabric shop. Like I might be in Amsterdam and suddenly there's a fabric shop, and then there's like this piece of fabric that's talking to me. I went to a Dries van Noten sale where he was selling off all his leftover clothes. And I was so excited. I was like, I'm going to get some Dries van Noten. I didn't buy any clothes. I found the fabric section and I was buying fabric. So I guess if you're working with paint, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
But when you work with textiles, I think you can just go with the flow. And that's what I do. I just go with the flow.
What happens if you're walking around out in public and you see someone wearing something that you're like, wow, look at the fabric on that? Would you ever consider approaching someone, or what would happen in that situation?
No, because I would imagine that if the fabric is so wonderful that they don't want to give me their piece of clothing for me to tear it up and then turn it into something else. Although there was an American collector who I met when I was in Miami, and she said to me, I have so many like old clothes of different types of silk. And I would love to give them to you. But you see, she volunteered, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I would never be like, I need that fabric that you're wearing.
So would you say all of your fabrics are found? So I'm wondering, in the future, would there ever be like a chance you'd say, I'd love to commission a type of like a purple and a grey, like mixed together, like a particular type of weave or something like that?
I like to work with what I have because I feel that when you work with what you have, you use your imagination. If you cultivate something specific to what you want, I mean, where is your imagination? You know, I made this piece. It's not in the show. It's called An Angel at My Bedside. So I'm basically sleeping and I'm wearing this red and white dress. And when I think about the actual dress, which I bought in Covent Garden in London, actually, I could never duplicate that. So I could have easily just ordered that fabric and used it to make my piece. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to convey something. So, no, I would never commission a specific weave. I would use what I have to convey what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, what I want to say.
Yeah, there's almost more. There's much more to it because it's not there. It goes. The imagination sort of takes you somewhere else. Fabulous.
Yeah, thank you so much, Billie. They were wonderful answers, and thank you everyone to sending in your questions as well.
No, this was loads of fun. I had a really good time. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you. I feel like we could be going on for ages.
Oh my gosh,
we've
absolutely.
blown past.
It's like it's so interesting, and all these other questions keep coming up, and it's great. Thank you so much to both of you, and all the questions that the audience sent as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. That brings us to an end.
Billie, thank you so much. What a guest! Fantastic answers, brilliant insights. Shame we can't do On the Gallery Floor with Billie Zangewa every month. But that's just how it goes.
Next year, same time.
Next year, same time. Yeah, we will schedule that one in.
Yeah, we'll be here. We'll send the FaceTime link in advance. Don't worry. Thank you, Billie.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you very much for listening. If you would like to learn more about the On the Gallery Floor podcast, then please visit jhg.art. And you can also connect with us now on Instagram via the handle @OnTheGalleryFloor.
So please do send us a message if you've got any questions, or hey, even if you'd like to work with us. Lastly, we must say a huge thank you to Ben Whitaker, who has composed our new theme and subsequent score. Thank you so much, Ben.
We'll be back for more next time on the Gallery Floor.